The world stands still as the unimaginable happens. War erupts between the United States and Russia. Tensions, years in the making, finally burst into full-scale conflict. This isn't just another regional skirmish. It's a fight for dominance between the world's most powerful nuclear superpowers. The atmosphere crackles with anticipation, and the world knows that everything is about to change. It begins with cyber attacks that cripple both nations' infrastructure. Satellites fall silent, power grids collapse, and financial systems freeze. In an instant, the digital landscape is destroyed. Then, the missiles come. The United States launches a preemptive strike, targeting Russian military installations. Russia retaliates swiftly, raining destruction on major U.S. cities. Washington, D.C., New York, and Los Angeles are engulfed in flames, reducing millions of lives to ashes in mere moments. Moscow suffers a similar fate. The Kremlin is obliterated by a powerful missile strike. The heart of Russian power falls, and the city becomes an inferno. The leaders of both nations know that war has begun, and there is no turning back. The world's most iconic cities now echo with the sounds of bombs, sirens, and destruction. On the ground, the fighting intensifies. Armies clash in the streets, tanks roll through New York and Moscow. Fighter jets tear through the sky, engaging in dogfights. Civilians, caught in the chaos, are forced to flee or face certain death. The military, once a well-oiled machine, is now spread thin as both nations launch massive ground offensives. Soldiers fight tooth and nail, with no clear victor in sight. As days pass, the war escalates. Drones swarm the skies, precision-guided missiles strike with deadly accuracy, and advanced artificial intelligence systems direct attacks. The battlefield is transformed into a high-tech nightmare, but even as the technology becomes more advanced, the human cost rises exponentially. Casualties mount as soldiers fall, cities burn, and the air grows thick with the stench of death. With every passing hour, the threat of nuclear escalation looms larger. Both the United States and Russia are armed with enough nuclear weapons to obliterate the planet, and both sides know that any misstep could trigger Armageddon. But pride, fear, and ambition drive both nations forward, pushing them to the brink of total annihilation. Then, the unthinkable happens. A nuclear missile is launched. The impact is immediate and catastrophic. Entire regions of both countries are obliterated in a flash. The blast creates a shockwave felt across the globe. Cities are turned to ash. Millions are killed in an instant. The aftermath is a wasteland, a radioactive hellscape where life as we know it can no longer exist. In the wake of the devastation, the global economy collapses. Stock markets crash, trade stops, governments scramble to secure whatever resources they have left. Refugees flood neighboring countries. The world is plunged into darkness. There is no order, there is no hope. Survival is the only goal. For those who survive, the world is no longer recognizable. The Earth has become a radioactive wasteland. Cities lie in ruins. The global infrastructure has collapsed. The few remaining governments struggle to maintain control, while the rest of the population fights tooth and nail for food, water, and shelter. In the end, the war between the United States and Russia leaves a scar on humanity that may never heal. The ambition, pride, and thirst for power that drove both nations to war have led to the near destruction of the world. The human race is left to pick up the pieces, but there is nothing left to rebuild. The future is bleak, and the cost of this war is felt by every living soul. The question remains, was it worth it? The world will never be the same, and the survivors will never forget the devastation caused by the catastrophic war that almost ended everything. War between the United States and Russia has entered its most devastating phase. Cities lie in ruins, military forces are stretched thin, and the world stands on the precipice of total annihilation. The cyber attacks and missile strikes were only the beginning. Now the struggle for survival becomes a brutal fight for dominance over what remains of the Earth. In the aftermath of the nuclear exchange, the survivors face an unimaginable reality. Entire regions have become uninhabitable. The once thriving metropolises of both nations are reduced to radioactive wastelands. The few cities that remain standing are overwhelmed with chaos. Governments crumble, and the military, once the strongest in the world, is now scattered and in disarray. It is a new world order, one where power is no longer measured in missiles or military might, but in survival. With both superpowers crippled, smaller nations are forced to take sides. Some rally behind the remnants of American and Russian forces, hoping to gain favor in the post-war world, while others choose neutrality or band together in a desperate bid for survival. It's a global game of alliances and betrayals, where the stakes couldn't be higher. The war's true horrors are now revealed. Disease spreads rapidly in the wake of the devastation. Radiation sickness is rampant, and clean water and food are nearly impossible to find. The The infrastructure of both nations has collapsed completely, and the survivors must rely on their wits and determination to stay alive. Makeshift communities form in the ruins, and survivalists become the new leaders. Lawlessness reigns, and resources are the most valuable commodity in this new post-apocalyptic world. In the midst of the chaos, a few voices rise above the rest. Leaders emerge from the ashes of the old world, trying to bring some semblance of order to the devastation. But it's clear that the world as it was is gone. There is no returning to the past. The war has forever altered the global landscape, and rebuilding is no longer a matter of politics or power, it's about survival. The battle now shifts from the battlefield to the very foundations of society. Who controls the remaining resources? Who has the power to rebuild? The once dominant nations of the US and Russia are now reduced to desperate players, struggling to maintain whatever influence they can in a world that no longer values might. As the dust settles, new dangers emerge. Rogue groups begin to rise, wielding the remnants of military technology and weapons of mass destruction. Piracy and raiding become common, with armed gangs roaming the wastelands. The battle for the future of Earth has shifted from political power to brutal, hand-to-hand survival. In this new world, technology has become both a blessing and a curse. Advanced drones and AI systems once used for warfare are now scavenged by survivors, used for both protection and terror. Old satellites fall from orbit, taking entire communication networks offline. The digital age has come to a halt, and yet, in this dark age, the human spirit does not easily give up. The fight for a new world order begins, not with weapons, but with ideas. As the war between America and Russia fades into history, the world looks ahead. What will emerge from the ashes of this destruction? Will humanity rebuild or continue to descend into chaos? The future remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. This war has left scars that may never heal. In the end, the cost of this conflict is measured not in soldiers lost, but in the very fabric of civilization itself. The world, once a beacon of hope, now stands as a grim reminder of the destructive power of human pride.